Today, everybody, we're going to finish up Chapter 6 as we take a look a little bit more in depth at the different dimensions of work and reward systems. Today, we're going to look at performance management, and then we're going to also take a look at reward systems and how people can use money and benefits to motivate and to retain employees. So let's go ahead and get started today with the rest of Chapter 6. Today we're going to finish up Chapter 6, Motivating Behavior with Work and Rewards, and today we're going to take a look at some other dimensions which include performance management and also rewards and benefits. Now let's take a look at performance management in organizations. And when you take a look at performance management, one of the things that stand out would be performance appraisals. Now performance appraisals evaluate an employee's work behaviors. They measure those behaviors and they compare them either by the company's standard or by their own previous behaviors or both. And if you don't take these performance appraisals seriously, you should. I had a dilemma as a manager at a school where they wanted me to word an employee's evaluation in such a way that if I wanted to, or if the company wanted to get rid of this person, they could. Performance appraisals are beneficial when they're used correctly, but they can be abused, and they can also be used as a weapon against employees. So take those seriously. If you have a company that evaluate your performance, then you want to make sure they do it accurately, fairly, and consistently. But here you're documenting the results of that person's appraisal and your assessment of them, and then you communicate those results to the employee. And the purpose is to provide feedback on how they're doing. Everybody needs to know how they are performing in relation to the standards of the organization. Are you doing a good job? Are you not doing a good job? Oftentimes, if we don't let them know what they're doing, they can branch off into unproductive behaviors, or they can continue on in bad behaviors, and that's ultimately going to have an adverse impact on the organization as well as the person. Here you can also decide and justify rewards, and also you have judgment and development where you can assess them and help them to develop further into that organization by giving them the appropriate feedback in areas that they can improve upon. Now figure 6.5 just shows the purpose where you look at the judgment of past performance and then the development of future performance. You look at where they've been, you look at where they're at now, and where they can go in the future. Now the questions that need to be asked when you are doing performance management: who is to do the appraisal? Now in the past and traditionally, the frontline supervisor or the immediate supervisor of that person will do the appraisal. And that is a highly subjective model because it leaves the appraisal up to one person. And if they like you, then normally you're going to get a good appraisal. If they don't like you, chances are you're going to have criticism. So it is a traditional and long-standing model or practice using one person who is directly above you, but it may not necessarily be the most objective. So what do we do in lieu of that? Well, today there is a model called 360-degree feedback where you are evaluated by the immediate supervisor, but you also have peers evaluate you, and you do your own evaluation as well. And then sometimes the customer can get involved. They may ask the customer how their experience with you went. So this gives a more holistic or complete assessment of the individual instead of just one person. Now, the next question is, how often are the appraisals to be done? Now, with appraisals, normally what I get is either every 6 months or once a year. Now, once a year is kind of a problem because 364 days out of the year, you don't know how well you're doing. You don't know if you're doing good or bad or whatever. So you get one assessment. And normally they do that just so that they could avoid any HR repercussions or discrimination or civil discrimination suits. So ideally, you're going to have maybe every quarter, every 3 months. Twice a year is better than once, but it's still really not enough to give an ongoing assessment, evaluation of a person so that they don't develop bad habits. And how is performance to be measured? So that's the criteria of the performance. That's the criteria of the evaluation. How are you going to measure it? Are you going to measure the work itself? Are you going to measure the person as well, their abilities and KSAOs, knowledge, skills, abilities, and other attributes that are important to that organization? Are you just going to look at the finished products that they produce? And again, you see here the process, the appraiser. Mentioned 360-degree feedback. You also have multiple rater systems, which include 360-degree feedback. And again, you have the direct supervisor. The frequency, it's done at the convenience of the administrative people for cultural appropriateness and relevance. So really, it's up to the company what they deem necessary and what they deem appropriate, but normally once a year is not enough, and the ideal scenario would be at least once a quarter, or maybe at the very outset, maybe once every 6 months. Now, the balanced scorecard is a fairly common practice, and it's kind of like 360-degree feedback in as much as you have a set of criteria: finance goals, internal business processes, innovation and learning, customer goal measure, vision and strategy. And as you see here, it looks at things from every angle. In every angle that needs to be measured, that's included, whether it's the customer, the finance, innovation, learning, internal business processes, all of that, and it needs to be in line with the vision and strategy of the organization. So, did that person meet the financial goals of the company? What was the customer experience like? So these are the ways that you will assess that person using the balanced scorecard. Now, this next system, or next area that we're going to look at, are reward systems. And these are all the components involved in allocating compensation and benefits. And you do that in exchange for their contribution to the organization. When I first started talking about hiring individuals, you enter into an agreement. The person is going to come to the organization with KSAOs, and again, that stands for knowledge, skills, abilities, and other attributes that are important for the organization. And they're going to come to you with motivation and all of those things, and you in return are going to give them a reward, or you're going to give them something in return for their efforts, and that's usually in the form of rewards, which can take the form of pay, benefits, and all of that. But these Systems. The reward systems include what you see here: the people, the processes, the rules, the procedures, and when you get to these two, you take a look at procedural and distributive justice, and we'll talk about that later on, and decision-making activities. Now, what is the purpose of a reward system? Well, as you can see here, you want to attract and retain and motivate people to stay in the organization. And if you don't have a competitive reward system, you're going to lose them to your competitor. So you have to know what everybody else is doing in the industry and be able to keep them, attract them, motivate them, and oftentimes you do that using rewards. And then roles of compensation structures to be equitable and consistent, and that's procedural justice to be a fair reward for the individual's contribution, that's distributive justice, and to be competitive in the external labor market, and that's just being able to keep up with the competition, to be able to maintain your talent in-house without having to worry about them going to a competitor. And then you have the meanings. You have the surface value, which is the meaning or the worth of the reward at face value, and then the symbolic value, and that's the personal meaning or worth of the reward. If they're not paying you nearly as much as your competitor, then symbolically they're saying we don't value you that much as our competition may value you. Or if you do a good job and work extremely hard and the manager just says, hey, I appreciate it, and that's it, did they really appreciate it? Are you valued? And some people place a whole lot more value on the symbolic nature of rewards as much sometimes, and even sometimes more, than the surface value. Now, within the individual rewards, you have a compensation package, which is the total array of money and wages and so forth. That's everything that you get as far as pay, benefits, perquisites, and awards. The base pay is a symbol of your worth, and that's the base of what you're going to be getting because of your abilities and KSAOs. It can improve motivation and performance if it's planned and managed appropriately. However, pay really at some point becomes an obstacle, because if you pay a person every time they do well, they're going to expect it, and you don't have an unlimited amount of resources. So you have to be careful with that. It's a major cost of doing business, and pay can reduce turnover. Good pay will keep a person there oftentimes when nothing else will. So just know that pay can be used as a strategic tool to be able to attract, retain, and motivate people. You have incentive pay systems. These are plans in which employees can earn additional compensation in return for certain types of performance. In sales, you may get a bonus if you are the number one salesman or salesperson for that month. So that would be an incentive. And then you have also piecework programs. Piecework is production work where the number of units that you produce, you get paid based on that. So the sky's the limit, but they work you like crazy to be able to really get a lot of money out of it. Gain sharing programs. If the company saves money, then you get the profit of it. And a lot of times employees will look for ways of being more efficient and effective, and then the employer will pass the savings on to you. Bonus systems, most people look at bonuses as an entitlement. It's not. But they've been getting it for so long, they just expect it. Bonuses are a privilege. They're not an entitlement. So a lot of times, if, let's say, you have a bad year and bonuses are not big or they're not given out at all, that can really affect the morale of the individual. Long-term compensation may be in the form of investments and so forth. Merit pay plans. Merit pay is really, as long as you stay there, you'll get an incremental increase during certain periods of time. Profit sharing, where if the company profits, you get to share in that profit. And then employee stock option plans, and that's you investing in the company. Now, there are also indirect compensation, and I'll lay those out here. You have payment for time not worked, and that may be if you're on vacation and you get paid vacation or paid sick leave, you can certainly benefit from that. Social Security, unemployment, disability, all of those are indirect benefits that you get. Life and health insurance programs, and many people will work for a company even if the pay is not that great, just so that they can get life and health insurance. And then pensions or retirement plans. So all of these go into the mix as well. Now, perquisites, these are special privileges that usually managers get, such as a company car, or they get a membership to the golf club or whatever. And it just adds to the status of their recipients, that they may increase job satisfaction and reduce turnover. So it's really a way that they can be acknowledged in special ways, unique ways, so that they can increase the efficiency and effectiveness of their job. And then you have rewards also for seniority and attendance and zero defects, and that's a big issue today, having high quality performance and material products and reducing the number of defects, and you can get rewarded for that. Linking performance and rewards. Well, the employee perception of link between pay and performance results in symbolic value of pay. So that's historically how people have, employees have really assessed or judged their performance. If I get a raise, then I'm doing good. If I get a bonus, I'm doing good. So they usually link that. We also have flexible reward systems, and that's the ability for the employee to choose the benefits or the combination that best suits their needs. And we called this in the past cafeteria style benefits. A young person, 20 years old, may not need a comprehensive life policy. They may not need extensive dental coverage. They may want more time off, or they may want other types of benefits. So a flexible reward system will let them pick and choose the types of benefits and rewards that are best for them. And participative pay systems, and employees are able to design and administer their own compensation system. Table 6.1 just talks about the issues when you're developing a reward system, and I'll let you guys take a look at that. There's everything from pay secrecy, which is we get into, once again, equity theory. There it is. So you want to make sure that you're transparent as much as possible, but when it comes to pay, you want to keep that within the confines of you and that employee. Getting out and all of that can get you in trouble. And that's all we have for today. We'll go ahead and finish up this chapter today as we take a look at these concepts, and we will come back next week with Chapter 7. Well, today we saw how companies can use different pay and reward strategies to attract, retain, and motivate employees. The challenge for companies today, and ministries, I guess, is to be able to keep good talent, to keep them motivated using reward systems, but not breaking themselves in the process. And as diversity and globalization and technology becomes more prevalent in the workplace, companies are going to have to develop new strategies to be able to motivate people without necessarily having to use financial incentives and so forth. And that's going to be a challenge as companies try to reconcile all that. Well, that's all we have for today. You have a good weekend, and we will see you next week and begin Chapter 7.